At 6 o'clock on Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, I will call to order monthly meeting of the Village Board of Trustees for Sister Bay. Roll call.
Bell,
Here.
Berto, here, Warner, here, Hart,
Here.
Orozco, here, Howson,
Here.
Shampo,
Here. Here.
Approval of the agenda. In order.
So moved.
second.
Motion by House and second by Orozco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of meeting minutes for the October 15th and 21st special board meeting. Any additions, deletions, subtractions, edits?
So moved.
Motion by Bertle, second by Orozco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Comments, correspondence, concerns from the public. Public comment is limited to 3 non-transferable minutes per person. We do have a quarterly report from the Sheriff's Department. Is there anybody out in the audience who would like to speak? Steve.
Got a couple of concerns. One was last month, the neighbors next to us, it was a STR, and they had rented it out to a group, and they built a bonfire in the backyard in the middle of a red flag. Fire was about 6 feet across and flames like 5 feet in the air. And I was so worried, I had my cell phone in my hand, I was ready to call 911. And finally, some adults came out and put a kibosh on this, did storing big logs on the fire. But I did send a note to Julie about it, and she forwarded it to Chris Heck. And he had said that any fire that you can't jump over requires a permit. So I talked to the owner, and I talked to the property manager in Sturgeon Bay. And the owner was very responsible. The property manager said, well, she says, if it's getting out of hand, she says, don't call 911, call me. Well, I guarantee you, it's that bad, I'm not calling her, she's not gonna do anything about it. So you might want to consider at some point in the future, when you revise your STR ordinances or permit requirements, to not allow bonfires or campfires or whatever at STR properties. The other thing I noticed too is that a lot of these STRs, at least on Fuel Crest Road, there's no address on them. The house is there, but and there's a number someplace on the house, but there's nothing at the street. So if you're a first responder coming down the street, you've got to go looking at each property, trying to figure out what the number is. And you would think, well, they don't have mail service, but you would think that somebody would put a sticker, a stake or something in the ground with an address label on it. And then the only other thing I was going to mention to you is that I forwarded 3 concerns about Bertram doing work on our property, including putting their box in our house and all that. And I talked to somebody at Bertram too, and they said, yeah, they'd get back to me, and that was back in, I don't know, June or July. So far, nobody's gotten back to us. And I don't know if they're gonna make the April date. And as far as I'm concerned, we're not up here all the time in the winter time. If they think they're gonna show up like on a Wednesday in January and say, we're gonna be there on Friday, well, guess what? That ain't gonna happen. So I thought I'd just let you guys know.
Okay. So some of these, I'm gonna have a conversation. I'll talk to Julie and pass these on to her. And then we'll make sure they get hers. So,
Yeah, she
she's
does.
obviously not here this.
Oh, yeah, she does have the emails though that went between her and me and Chris Heck. And I do want to call the owner back and say that there's a problem here because the owner said they hired a property manager in Sturgeon Bay to convey this information to the renters. But I've had 3 experiences now with property manager problems, and they seem to view their position as we're just gonna sweep everything under the rug so we can tell the owners that everything is just hunky-dory. And I don't think that's a proper way to do things.
When I'm hearing, what I think we should probably do is ask that this be included in all of the STR rules. Like, so when they're, because they do have to publish a list of rules, that just to clarify that for them, because it is something that happens in a number of STRs.
I suggested to the owner to reduce the burn pit back to what it was originally, which is about maybe 2 feet or 1.5 feet in diameter. But the owner seemed to want to leave that up to the property manager. The property manager didn't seem to care. So.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anyone else? Anyone? Okay. Then on to county supervisor report. I know that Patrick is unable to make it tonight.
Did he say that he would be at the December meeting?
No.
I'll reach out to him.
We cancel.
Okay, 7A. Resolution extending the village health planning task force to 3 years.
Patrice, do you want to talk about that at all?
Is she already working?
Has not unmuted herself.
So basically,
Hello?
it's a 1 year extension. I think, you know, it's kind of self-explanatory.
We can hear you,
Read-
Patrice.
If you read the packet, so I'll just make a motion, to approve the extension for the year. Second.
Okay, motion by Bertle, second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
7B, adopt retentions, records retention policy for the village's history of Westford, water and sewer utility. Any discussion on this? This is
Recommendation from utilities.
I'm going to approve.
motion by Warner,
Second.
second by Hart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 7C, amend chapter 6 on alcoholic beverages.
So what you see in the packet is the same thing you saw last month with the addition of one correction that I missed in the title of the forms. They went from ABs to ATs or vice versa. Sorry, I mean, so I did correct that in the draft you saw last month. And to approve?
Motion by Warner,
Second.
second by Hart. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to discussion action items.
Can you hold 1 second? I'm still scrolling through to get down to
Sure.
where we are.
127.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the administration building, design approval. So we asked First Properties and Streets to take a look at doing a revision, and this is what they came back with. Discussion?
And Mike, I presume, is with us.
Yes.
That's correct.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Good evening. Good evening.
So basically,
You can see the,
both are in here.
yeah, and
the
there's
ori-
also, you can also see on the easels. That would be helpful if anybody wants to get up and go and look at those, if it's difficult. Online.
Questions for the Parks Committee? Or Mike?
I guess was Parks unanimous in liking design C? Is this, are you guys happy? Is Parks happy?
Mike has voted, no on anything pertaining to this, so no, it was not unanimous. He just doesn't want us to,
Mike Laskowitz, still has some objections to it. He was the only one that voted no.
Okay, so you came around and liked it.
Yeah, I approved it.
So there's a bit of a central corridor now, so that's kind of what the atrium would have been.
right, it's just not open to the ceiling anymore. It's just regular height.
Right.
Ceiling.
It's not a 30-foot ceiling any longer. And the parking lot's moved as well. Probably the two biggest ones, I think. Capacity stayed the same. In terms of how many it seats.
So with these two plans, we can still go out and get estimates on both, or bids on both of these, or we pick one right now?
You pick one. Well, that was my understanding anyway. Yeah, that's why we went back to the drawing board, literally.
I thought there was some discussion that said, okay, well, if we're going to do this, it's not gonna take somebody that much more to put a bid on the other one, although I do think that this new plan is.
I think the discussion was it wouldn't take that much more to do a redesign with the central corridor, but maybe I I may not be remembering it correctly. I don't know.
I think that Parks did what we asked.
I think so. I think we all agreed that a new admin building was necessary and it's still not cheap. But I don't think we're going to get anything cheap, so, or we don't want anything cheap.
They built.
I see.
Okay. I prefer the redesign. I don't know how anybody else feels. Anybody else has any?
Yeah, it looks really good, the whole layout. And the usage of space.
Okay. So do we want to approve this design? And do you want to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Hausen, second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, ice rink, Friends of Group update. This came up last month and we were asked to reach out to the friends, so I reached out to Miles and I asked him to come here and give us an update. Where things are at, Miles.
All right, Miles Danhausen, president of the Friends of the Citrus Bay Ice Rink Group. So I don't know if you guys have specific questions, but I'll give you a few updates on some activities, and then you can pepper me with questions if you have them. We have continued working through on our 501c3 status. We, once the village makes its commitment to its financial commitment, and that's solid, then we begin work with the Door County Community Foundation on the capital campaign with them. Talked to Brett B. Coy today. They're ready to go as soon as they get that word to start working on that with us. We had a fundraising booth at the Fall Fest Parade. We also are working on taking over the old trivia contest that Bruce Alexander has hosted. That used to be a Peninsula Preschool fundraiser, their primary fundraiser of the year. Bruce is all about us taking that on, so we'll maybe doing that very soon. We have our volunteers put on about 24 hours just cleaning the existing surface earlier, about 2 months ago. A bunch of us went out there. Actually, Nick Barber-Stay, which was also a huge help. He's got like a painting company, so he brought his pressure washers down there and we pressure washed we were able to get about 2/3 of the surface done just to make it the best possible we could for this winter, and also clean all the gravel and debris and dirt out of there. Even if we don't get we didn't pursue a new surface, there's a lot of work that would need to be done there in the meantime, but at least some of that prep work is done. And then our committee has also, in our latest meeting, and this is something to engage the village, I believe this might go through staff or however you want to direct us, but we would like to discuss or pursue an agreement to manage the rink. Once we would build this new rink, we'd like to pursue an agreement that we would manage the rink and the village would make its ongoing contribution and figure out what that dollar figure is in the years ahead to the operations, but we could take over management of the rink to ensure that staff and operators and we fundraise every year for any ongoing expenses. Part of that's really great is Jess Ranke. For those who don't know, she was the opening director of the Crest Pavilion for the first 5 years or so. So she's very familiar with the public-private partnership and those operating agreements and how that functions. So she has joined our committee. She's a big skating enthusiast who lives in the town of Jacksonport and loves the idea of building this ice rink. So she's on board as well. And then I think the last time I was here, Eric from Parks had expressed some questions about the chiller system and concerns about how hard that would be to operate. And so I followed back up with the folks from Howard Commons, the new rink that was built in Howard, just outside of Green Bay last year. And then Lizzie Bergstrom from the Neenah Ice Rink about what problems they had run into. And basically the only issues they've had in Lizzie's case, they built the rink and then next door, I think it's an 8-story apartment building was built. And when they did that, they blasted to put the footings in for that. And that disrupted the glycol system and led to leaks, so they had to repair that. And then, but other than that, The only thing she warned me about is mice getting into the chiller system and potentially biting electrical cords, which is the problem they had. But otherwise, they said the operations of the systems themselves, the training was essentially like them coming and showing you how to turn it on, because apparently that's what it is, more or less. So they also said like, yeah, you just get the warranty service for it too for those first 7 years. So I don't know if there's other specific questions you have at this point.
So like the ongoing maintenance, that is done by a specialty organization. I'm guessing it's not just, you don't get an electrician to go out there and do it. You actually have somebody that operates chillers. That's what they do.
Yep, I mean, it's just like, for instance, Brennan Cosby is Luke Lockenbach, right? He's the refrigeration expert for the entire county. That's essentially what this is a bigger refrigeration system. Just like with the village admin building, you're gonna have an HVAC system. You're gonna have a guy who come with, like, if you go do something beyond your skill grade, you're gonna have, but like you can also rent these chillers is an option, and they actually, a company comes and delivers them, like NHL teams do that.
You mean like you rent them for the season and then?
Yeah, they bring them in and plug them into your system and run that way. That is, it's something we've looked at as if we had a, short-term option, if we weren't able to hit our fundraising goals, like you can rent those for about 45 grand a season. And they just come and deliver them, plug them in, and if it breaks down, they just bring a new one to you. NHL hockey teams, if a team goes deep into the playoffs and they're playing in April and May, that the train brings in 7-8 different chillers, and in that case, in some cases they got to cool down the arena, in some cases they got to chill the arena or warm up the arena because they got to have it at a certain temperature for the guys. But that's a lot of details that you could get a bug out. But yeah, you have any of these would come with, you would buy a 7-year services contract from that company at minimum to service those chillers. But
I guess what I was getting at, is this a general refrigeration person or is this a specialty? Can Luke do this?
I think he probably could. But you would probably, as part of your package, you pay for their guy to come out and do it. So I can get more details on that too.
I think where it's gonna come in is where my mind's going with this is the more specialized you are, the less options you have, the less
Maintenance.
competitive it can be.
Yeah, well, for instance, Train does this stuff. Like a lot of these things are built by Train. You can get it done through the company that builds your rink. But if we decide there's a better option for maintenance purposes or whatever, you just have Train come in, the rink builders put the coils in and everything, you have somebody else who puts in the refrigeration system. So that could be Train, which is, they do a lot of work up here. And actually there was a guy who was interested in this project from Train like 5 years ago, but I don't know if he's still there. It's been a long time since I talked to him. But yeah, any refrigeration system might build something like this. Some of the ice rink people build their own, but you can buy them.
So when you're saying you're looking for this agreement, is this before you really get very far down raising funds? You'd want to have this arrangement nailed down, or what is?
I think we could nail, we could nail that. Like I have an example of different operating agreements for similar public, I wouldn't even call it public-private, because it's like kind of public nonprofit partnerships. But we can work off the framework of what other people have done, change some language, nail down some specifics. I don't think it would be that hard to figure it out. We've got a very invested group on our committee of 13 people from 6 different Northern Door communities who are very vested in trying to make this work and driving this forward. And the Community Foundation, who's also been part of creating these kind of public nonprofit partnerships.
Well, the SBAA has an operating agreement with the village for the shuttle bus. They own the shuttle bus, the SBAA operates it. And it's a very straightforward, easy, we've had it for 8 years, 7 or 8 years, maybe not that long. But still, and it's renewable. And then it's pretty straightforward and completely transparent. So it's something that, at least in that case, we've done before, and the SBA is a nonprofit.
I was a little confused by one of your first statements, Miles, about that you're waiting to get the word about the funding and moving forward with the community foundation. I mean, it's done. We had the public hearing, we approved the budget.
As a go. I mean,
I mean,
nobody's.
is there more you're
told me
looking
to
for?
go, so.
Yeah.
Like, I've had it been put in like SIF plans before, so I did like,
This isn't the CIP, this is in the budget.
okay,
We haven't.
I mean, like, is there something more you're looking for from us? I mean,
no, that's good, I just need that word.
I wasn't also,
No, nobody told me it was done.
I mean, yeah, it's in the CIP,
It's in the SIP. Yeah. it's
but,
written out.
but it's in the SIP to be paid out.
Right.
this, well, it was part of the budget too, first of all, yeah. It was actually in the budget.
Sounds like-
Glad.
But
Well,
now you're
actually,
making
All
me
right, see ya.
question
I mean,
what
I'm
we
sure that
did.
Miles can talk to.
I did
us out of
ask
this.
Wayne, and she said there might be like one more step to like finalize it, but.
I have a question, Miles, for you. This is Patrice. Do you have any kind of numbers for us? How much is this going to cost the village yearly after we have given you the $500,000 and you've done the fundraising? What is it? What is the responsibility costs of the village every year for this?
So that would be part of that operating agreement when we finalize. If you recall the last 2 meetings, I don't know, 2 months ago when I came here, I provided that FAQs for everybody and that had the ongoing costs. Right now, the village budgets, in their budgets from like, and I thought like 2015 to 19 were probably more applicable maybe than now, although you'd probably raise those numbers now, but because the rink has been between COVID and then the warm winters, not really that operational the last few years. Some of the better comparisons are farther back, but at that time, the village was budgeting anywhere from $30,000 to $35,000 a year for operating expenses for the rink between payroll and then the actual paid out would always vary based on how much snow and how many days you were open. So our estimate for keeping this thing open, because our labor actually wouldn't change even though it would be open a lot more because so much of the labor now goes into filling that pond. But it's about $30,000 a year in labor to be open 5 days a week. And then an additional, the added cost is the electric cost, roughly $45,000 to $55,000 a year for electric to run those chillers. Our group would be willing to engage in a lot of fundraising efforts to help offset that, but we'd also like the village to remain committed to, like, if we can go out and raise it $2 million plus to give you this great facility, we'd like the village to be committed to continuing to contribute to those operating costs for that gift.
But not necessarily the whole dollar amount,
No. So
just so that you could count on something every year,
yeah,
knowing what you would have to fundraise for.
yeah,
So I think the answer is really that depends on the operating agreement. But,
yeah.
I think something also that's important there is to project how many more days you're gonna be open.
I mean, so I talked to, even with last year's warm winter, Howard Commons and Nina both told me that they were, the only time they actually had to close at night was when it was too cold. Because even with the warm winter, they were able to make ice for the evening because the temperature drops and they were able to get open even on those warm days from mid-November through the end of February. So that's essentially what we're aiming for here. And if we couldn't do that, if the rink builders told us we couldn't function that way, then I don't know that I'd be pursuing it. But, you know, we've gone round and round at what those temperatures are. And so essentially, like I work in the Door County Pond Hockey Tournament, we were able to create ice on a day that ended up being like a 45-degree day. We were able to bust our butts throughout the night, make ice, have ice till like 11 in the morning, then the sun rises, and it wiped it all away. Part of that is because it melts underneath and you get like a foot of water underneath it eventually. But had you been able to just turn on a chiller and make ice, we could have still staged the tournament even on those warm days, and you maybe wouldn't have played games from like 11 a.m. to 3 when the sun is at its peak, but you could just go into the night. So there's from what these other rinks I've had a lot of conversations with other rink managers around the state to try and just double check and recross the Ts and redot the Is to make sure this is viable.
Yes.
So I would think like you could,
So Vlad is saying it actually is in the budget, but if there's something more you want from us, that
that's great.
How much was it?
I
Was
wanna
it
see you
250 or
run.
500?
Yeah, I mean, I'm calling, I'll text Brett Decoy tonight and
Okay.
we'll start talking to donors.
Okay.
Like, more, seriously, talking donors.
So Miles, for the benefit of people that maybe don't understand the model that Community Foundation uses for folks like you, because it's, by the way, very similar to what they did, what they're doing with our barn.
Hmm.
And they've done a great job helping them. And they've stepped in a lot of different cases, and there's a lot of different arms that they've done in terms of helping nonprofits and things. Could you just briefly, explain their role?
Sure.
And then how they work with, in your case, your committee, just as they did with Barn Committee and others.
Well, in short, the Community Foundation has expertise that nobody else in the county has. I mean, you might be engaging on your capital campaign, they've been a part of 50 or more to do this. So they've got lots of experience in how to advise you on to engage in your fundraising efforts, where to set your levels, where to put your naming rights, all that sort of stuff that like the layperson wouldn't know, and it's a heavy lift. And they've already helped us a great degree with that. But then everything from helping you with your tax filings to, your legally obligated thank you letters, which for small nonprofits that I've been a part of, that can be hard to keep up on. Like they just make sure all that stuff is done and that you're hitting your benchmarks and that you're filing your paperwork and doing all the things that make it legal and organized and correct. That, if anybody else has been a part of a nonprofit, small nonprofit and here before, like that can be the thing that comes up 3 years later that leaves you in a lurch. They do all that and they have great expertise, and then they have access to a lot of donors who might come with it to them and say, I'm looking for a project, or I was thinking in this space, and they can steer. Like it's not that they don't raise the money on your behalf. They don't go out and beat the doors down, but they give you advice and access along the way. If that's the easiest way to explain it, Louise, or is
It is, yeah. Well, I was part of a couple different things, and what I'm not sure everybody understands is that they vet projects. And they have a number of people that go to them, I would think pretty frequently, and say, could you help us with this? And a committee meets to decide whether they'll do it or not. And oftentimes they won't, but
Yeah.
oftentimes they will. It depends on having had the experience that they've had over the years. They look for, there's a lot of different elements that they're looking for what they look for is success. They want to know that whomever and they're partnering with and whatever the project is, it will be successful. They in no way want to be attached to something that is lovely, but maybe not realistic.
Yeah. That's
been my experience.
Yeah, and that was actually news to me, even though I've known about the organization for so long and know a lot about how they operate. It was an application process, provide them with a chunk of information, they bring it to their board of directors is a lot of the large donors in the community, and they decide whether or not they think this is a viable project to move forward with, and that's a huge vote of confidence.
Which helps to facilitate some of there's no guarantees on anything, but, and then could you also, I'm not sure everybody knows who's on the Friends Committee, if you could share that with everybody?
Yeah, hopefully
You don't
every time I
remember.
send an email out.
I think Christian could probably help you, don't forget him.
Christian McWhinney's right here, he's been part of our organization, helped a lot, hockey guy from,
Well, Milwaukee area, but Canada originally, so, got that.
we got some authenticity there.
Yeah, Zamboni driver, we do a lot.
Then Kevin Grant is on our committee, on our executive committee, been greatly involved from the start. Brian Fitzgerald, who was one of the original group that built the original rink that was, I think, right over there. Louise was helpful in the early stages before she ran for office and has no longer been a part of it. So we gained a board member, lost a board member. Jess Ranke, Elizabeth Grooms, Ellie Soderberg,
Carrie,
Bobby Kranick,
Carrie Baldwin.
Carrie Baldwin, Matt Stone. I'm forgetting a couple. Cole Vanderleest.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Your wife, Miles?
Oh, yes, my wife. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Who's 7 months pregnant?
Nah, 8.
8 months? Nice, I did that on purpose. Just kidding, but it's good to know, who your friends and neighbors are and if they might be on, or someone you could ask, actually. Besides, Miles is usually the face of. And thanks, Kristen, for coming. Okay.
And incidentally, I still can't skate, so. This is not a passion project for me to pursue a hobby. I just think it's really cool.
So would it be logical then, maybe you come back and talk to, I think it's better you come to the board than parks. I mean, come to the board and talk to us again in where we basically December, right? Come back in February or so and give us an update, because there would be some movement by then. Is that realistic?
Hopefully I'm coming to you with an update sooner than that, actually.
Okay.
I guess then the next, the question I have is, where should I direct efforts in terms of coming up with a operating agreement? To keep that moving as we're fundraising.
Parks.
But then you wanna go to parks.
Parks, and then Julie would be there, and then we'd run it past legal, but that's who the SBA works with, would be parks, and then, Julie's involved in terms of the administration of it.
Alright.
And also,
Thank you, Miles.
thank
All
you.
right, thank you, and I don't mean to dine and ditch, but my kids are at a babysitter right now, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for making that short.
Thank you.
Okay, 8A, development agreement, Stone Wharf Aquatics Facility on Highway 57. If there's any questions on this, this is a pretty straightforward development agreement.
This one is Plan Commission.
Yes.
Alright.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I haven't been at the plan commission meetings, but I love this. And my only question, I suppose this will be, down the line, Rachel, but it looks like there's a lot of lights and there needs to be a lot of lights, I think, right? So that we'll see that process later. Have you guys looked at any of that yet, or we're way too early we are too early in it?
No, we approved their lighting. plan.
Okay, so because when I look at these plans, believe me, I'm no expert, I have no expertise in, so this is not a criticism. So the lights are, they're dark sky, because there's not much outside right now, right? Isn't most of it indoors?
The facility, yeah, the first phase is all in the
Mhm.
facility.
So this is lighting for pathways and parking and so forth, right?
And I think, did we,
The planning commission requested that we kept the lumens under, or 3,000 or below.
Right,
yes.
Yeah, 3,000 or below.
The light color was under 3,000.
right,
Correct.
and did we I'm trying to remember, and I can't specifically, did we say that when you were closed, that they would be, the majority of them would be off?
They would be off except for the building lights.
Yes. So the parking lot will not be
Okay,
lit.
it's really helpful, but because it's a large, soon to be maybe larger, which is, I understand, and which is great, but in like kind of a big old field, which is, so that was my only question.
Something that we've been able to put time discussing.
I bet, should have come to that meeting and listened in, I did not. I
What do
apologize.
you anticipate the operating hours to be?
So I believe they'll be between the hours of 6 and 8.
But not late.
Not 2 hours, right?
Sorry?
2 hours?
Oh, 6 a.m. to 8
I'm
p.m.
kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. Those early birds that wanna jump in a pool, oh my God.
I'll make a motion to approve. Development agreement as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Bill, second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion goes. Thank you.
That's great, Chels.
Okay, next one, 8D is development agreement for mechanical. Also gone through plan. Any questions on that?
We have two pretty services buildings now.
Wait, what?
So we have two pretty home services buildings now.
Yeah, they really are.
Well, Wolf and Eagle. Right.
As pretty as they can.
Well, I mean,
For
Pretty.
for what they are.
what they
Pretty.
are. You know.
They're needed to have a year-round community.
Well, yeah, and it's nice because it's right, it's in the outer corners, somebody drives in, so that's good, yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Situation.
Motion by Helsley,
Second.
second by Hart, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. On to the assessment services contract for action appraisal.
Point of clarification. On page 198, it says in the staff report, it's mentioning 2017.
Oh, it does.
The revaluation?
That should be
Is it
2027.
Okay,
Yeah.
we might want to correct that before these go in the official
Sure.
binders.
I think.
I'm sorry, what was the mistake? It's 2027 instead of
Yeah.
2017?
Yeah.
So what happened with this is we had got after we approved our budget, there was a contract that came from action appraisal that was increasing the fee for next year. After we already done the budget, Julie reached out, said, we've already approved this. This is really not something that you can't really change this right now without us having to go back to the board and amending the budget. So they agreed to the amount that we allocated. And then Julie said, well, we need to dig into this and look at it and see what other options we have. She came back with an option from action and then also the associated. I think that so I'm looking down through here in the service area, it says it's actual appraisal has done Bailey's Harbor. So we've got Zach Zacharias and his group, and then the other appraisers which do the surrounding areas. So that's the two options we're
Do
looking
they
at.
have representation here tonight?
Don't believe so.
So do we need, I guess I was confused by the 2017. I was wondering if we needed a revaluation when that was added into the associated. But is this something we need to do revaluation in 2027?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, you
As I
have to
was
do
reading
it.
it, it's
The
like all
reevaluations
the-
with every 6 years or something. State has got a minimum, and there's
A
certain.
minimum. Either you have to do it if you were supposed to, if I remember correctly. You need to be at 80%. If you ever look closely at your tax, but it'll kind of tell you what the ratio is. And if once you drop below 80%, like we had done this last time, it
Excuse me, it's 90%.
90.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. And is it 90 and 110?
Yes,
Okay. So in that 20 points, percentage points, it automatically triggers a reval. But if those numbers don't trigger one, you still by state statute have to have one every so many years. So we have no choice in that matter.
And then with, I'm sorry, one more question. With the inside inspections, is that something that Action does not do?
we had always done them, but because of there was a new law a number of years back that stated property owners were not required to allow us in their property. And they could still appeal at the Board of Review. Because of that law and of COVID, we get into such a small percentage of properties that it's not beneficial to the town to pay us to do that and then not get into properties. So that's why we don't do that.
So my feeling was when we look at these numbers, I don't think we need the interior. I wouldn't want somebody walking through my house.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'm on the opposite end.
Oh, okay, I was thinking we didn't need the interior evaluation.
We would never deny someone, I mean, granted, even though we're gonna do an exterior, if someone said, no, can you come in and walk through, we would never say no. Because that's not part of our contract, we would still absolutely go in. And the reason we are doing this, number one is, the village is out of compliance. But when we originally signed on with the village, it was requested that we have a cycle. That I don't remember if it was every 4 years or that we kept the village in compliance. And that was the reason that the exterior evaluation is on here. That, and also because the village is out of compliance again for 24.
No, the village is out of compliance again, even though did an evaluation last year?
The Department of Revenue just sent out their numbers on October 24th of this year, the preliminary numbers, and the village changed by about 10% in 1 year, causing the town or village to come out again.
Oh,
And it all has to do with just because of the sales happening so fast, so quick. up here.
is it more sales? Over assessed fair market value or assessed valuation versus net new construction?
It's a ratio of sales to the assessed value. So how they create
Okay.
that ratio is looking at what the assessed value is compared to what that house sold for. And then they calculate, say like an average to come up with a percentage change from year to year. And this last year was about right around 7% overall. The residential changed about 8%, commercial changed more than 10%. Just about 10% as well.
So with that being said, so for 23, the village was at 97.53%. For 94, we're looking at 90.43, with residential being at 89%.
So is that residential is what's actually gonna trigger it?
Yes.
Yes, that's what's triggering it. That's the preliminary numbers, but there's no reason that would change when the final numbers come out, because we haven't. All the reports are submitted, so this should be an accurate number.
So what is the state saying then that the village is worth this year versus last? Can you give me those numbers?
For their equalized value, 2023, the village was at 816,037,600. Now for 2024, they're saying it's gonna be 889,708,600. And our total assessed values for 2024 is at 804,565,200, meaning we're just about $80 million underneath the fair market value.
That's crazy.
When did that come up?
Are you finding this in a lot of your communities, or are we kind of the black sheep?
Up here in Door County, it's happening a little bit faster, even in the area. I do have some communities in Kewaunee and Manitowoc County where I did do it 1 year and they were out the next year. It's just that things have been, now in 2024, I've been seeing things have been slowing down more in the valley. There's not as much for sale, and they're on the market a little bit longer. But up here, it seems to be everything is a little bit later than everything down in the valley area. Even 2008, 2009, everything hit up here a little bit later than what it did.
But we always follow late on whatever is going on, anything in the world, the economy.
I did do Bailey's Harbor the same time in last year, and I'm gonna be redoing it again. They were you guys are very close. I just did the Village this last year, or this year. And I already foresee them coming out in 4 or 5 years because of the sales I'm already seeing are that much higher. When I do my values, I do try to look at the following year's worth of sales. I don't use, I'm restricted to have my sales as of January 1st, but I do look ahead to see where the market is going. Whether if it's gonna need to be a little bit stronger on my sales so we don't come out the next year, or do I need to back off because it's going the other way. So I do look at the market in that case.
So where do you think the market's going?
This year's starting to slow down some. I just finished up some of the sales.
When you say slow down, you say that there's not as much increase in properties in terms of what they're selling for, or are you saying that they're longer on the market?
Correct. There's not the amount of sales on the market anymore, and they're a lot longer on the market. And I've been seeing that some of the sales have dropped, or some of the listings their values have dropped some.
Price reductions.
Correct, versus it was a few years ago or a couple of years ago.
They were not.
Yeah.
They just sold right away.
Yeah.
So that's not happening as much, but.
And it really depends on what it is too. There are some homes, whether it's a smaller cookie cutter ranch house that's easily used for short-term rentals, those tend to be going a little faster.
Yeah.
Versus some of the condos. Those tend to stay a little bit longer.
Okay, and you're seeing that in other markets besides Sister Bay?
Yes, yeah, I'm seeing just up in Door County in general.
So I guess I would vote to stick with action because it's significantly cheaper.
Also, I guess that somehow it's listed here, how in my discussions with Julie, it seems like you guys are including this reeval in your cost. Where the other company is every time there's a reevaluation, there's a charge for it.
I did include it, and that's part of the reason for the large jump from the last series of contracts. So when, like I stated earlier, when we originally were hired by the village, the understanding was to keep you into compliance, so that every 4 years we were doing, whether it be a market update or some kind of a revaluation to keep you in compliance. If that has changed and that's not what you want, we can adjust our contract accordingly.
Of course, we want to be in.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just trying to
make sure that I'm understanding what is wanted by the village.
Well, I mean, like what's in here says that it's $30,000 annually versus $43,000 annually. Well, that's $30,000 annually plus the $100,000 to $130,000 reevaluation. So it's more like 43 or 50. So that's why I bring that up, just to make sure that we're addressing that in there.
And we hadn't increased our contract for 8 years as well. I don't know if you have that history, but we hadn't increased our contract for 8 years, and we did 2 market updates in that time.
Sure.
So, so earlier I said I disagreed with Allison, and you had shared with us why. Because in the past, if you didn't allow somebody in your home, they could not come and appeal it to the Board of Review.
Correct.
And the Wisconsin legislature changed that?
Yes, I don't know what year it was.
It was Act 68. They come out in 2017. There was a Supreme Court case on it. There was an assessor down in town of Delavan where a taxpayer blatantly refused the assessor to come in, and the assessor just put a refusal fee on there, a percentage increase because they refused it. And then they brought it up to the Supreme Court case, and they changed the law now that if you refuse us, they're still able to go to the Board of Review. And that is just for the interior. anything on the exterior, if they refuse us, technically, we could still refuse Met Board review, but because it's already gone to Supreme Court case, they said just to treat it as the same, because it only take one case to change that law. So right now we do, we treat everything the same. We send out letters to everybody letting us know that we're out there. And we've been only doing exterior since then. And then COVID was shortly after that. And then we really weren't working on the inside of homes.
Right,
The people,
because I think you guys
Yeah.
visited me once
Yeah.
on the inside of my house. And one of the reasons why I liked the interior was, because one of the issues that we have dealt, with Plan Commission is that we've had a lot of STRs who previous owners, of the property finished off a basement, put in another bedroom. They didn't have permits, it's not in the file. And I know Julie has communicated all of that, to you to update your files or whatever communication, you guys have had. And so I was just thinking, it's just one way of making sure we have the proper information. I understand it's a lot of additional work. So knowing all of that, I guess I'm okay then, by not going inside. I've been around a long time on this board. And, one of my biggest concerns is that having a strong presence at Board of Review. And I was president for 15 years, so I ran Board of Review for those 15 years. And think they were all with Mike Walker, who was a bull. And he knew everything. He stood behind his numbers. He explained why it is according to law. The assessor is correct, and the burden of proof is on the homeowner to prove otherwise. The last couple of Board of Reviews that I have been at, I didn't feel that we had that strong a representation that I have been used to in the past when it comes to Board of Review. And I also felt that we took up the whole entire 2 hours that legally we had to be there, almost, I think, with one person each time. That's ridiculous. You know, what if we had 20 people? So that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with, you know, the contracts or whatever, but that's a concern I have with whoever the village decides to have a contract with moving forward. That and other than Nate, nobody else here would know how. Well, I think I dealt with your father for a few years and was comfortable with him. But I was just used to something very different and just felt that the strengths of the arguments weren't as strong as what I would have liked them to have been if I can point to the statute that says that the assessor is right, but I'm not necessarily feeling that in the presentation.
I think the word that comes to my mind is we're looking for somebody to zealously defend those appraisals. And I would agree that this year that didn't happen, but I also say that as far as one case taking it up, that probably would have been managed differently had there been more than one case in front. I don't think that would have been allowed to happen. So,
I missed this quarter review, but I was there 2 years ago and I felt the same thing. I didn't feel it was necessarily the appraisers. I felt it maybe was more that the Board of Review was kind of novice, like Lily was new, I was new. I don't know who else was there. I think Nate, maybe you were missing.
yeah.
And I think we were just discussing among
Sarah.
ourselves a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we were at the Village Hall.
And
Yeah, because I was there because Nate was not.
So I feel like maybe we were a little newer, so we were just kind of discussing a little more, but maybe, I don't know. That's what I felt. I felt like we just were listening
And
and we,
sometimes that can happen though, every couple years, if you have a lot of turnover on a board, that we need to have that faith and that security in our assessor to bring, you know, anybody new along. And that year, right, it was three brand new members.
Well, this year it was, I mean, I was there and there were new members. We had one person that attended. And I asked a lot of questions, was Patrice, myself. I think
I was there.
Nate, Lily, Kurt. I think the only people that weren't there were probably both of you. But you know, I thought that it was productive. I didn't think that anybody, in this case, our assessor caved up right, you know, it didn't mean that the homeowner was, you know, thrilled with what was said, but what was said made sense to me. And it was the, you know, we wound up, as I recall, right? We wound up, you know, trying to figure out a way, and I think it was you that helped make that happen. But it wasn't, I didn't feel like it was a weak presentation, I guess what I'm, in a really roundabout way, what I'm getting at. But there were good questions that were asked, and I was new to it, and I'm sure, I know Patrice, I think Patrice was, Kurt was. So it was I don't know, I thought it was,
I just have many other years to
I have nothing to compare it to.
So
compare it to.
Right.
from my perspective, I think Mike Walker was difficult to that point. I think that, and I was not part of the board review for the years he was there. But I think that was, from my perspective, too much of bulldozing over people. I do think that Troy was, hey, this is the assessment, this is why it is. You're gonna override it, I guess you can override it, but I set the assessment where it was, and I think there was a bit more of a defense on there. So I do think that what you're saying is accurate, Denise. And I think that's something that, I mean, no offense, Zach, but it's something you learn. So I think if we ask you to do that, I have faith that you can learn,
You bet.
and do a better job.
You bet. My philosophy, whether it's at open book, board review, or talking with someone on the phone, is just treating everybody the same as if I were on the other side of the table, not treating that person as a number. I can say we don't have all the information. It's getting more and more difficult with remodeling, building permit. Well, you guys' building permits are pretty good, but remodeling, everyone being very handy. So I'm finding I'm not getting all of the information because everybody is handy. They can do stuff on their own. So if my information isn't accurate, then my values are going to be inaccurate. So it's usually when we come into open book board review, it's making sure, the first thing is making sure all the information is correct, and then going from there. And then explaining the process of the open book and board review and how I arrived to my value compared to everybody else and compared to their neighbors. I wish I would have, Mike was around that I could sit and learn from him a few times. All I've heard were stories, but I wish I could learn a few things from him.
He was he retired because everything was going digitally.
Yeah.
He was a paper guy. His files were immaculate. It was crazy. But anyway, I miss him. He's up in heaven somewhere. I know it's been for a while. And that was my biggest concern, moving forward.
I also think that we should stay with action, my opinion on this. And then in 4 years from now, just make sure if you're going to change the contract, do that in August.
Yeah.
I know you appreciate it.
And Julie
Yeah.
did point that out, and it was, I usually do the contract, and it was fault of mine that I'm aware I need to get them out in July and August. And not just for Sister Bay, but all of our municipalities appreciate getting them earlier. This year has been just horrendous and I apologize. I've had a lot going on.
We appreciate you adjusting yours for 2025 is for the reasons we laid out.
So I'll move that we approve this contract agreement for consulting, assessing and appraisal services by Action Appraisers.
Motion by Warner,
Second.
second by Housen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. F, the CDBG contract for the Village Hall renovations. This is, I don't know,
25.
Oh, can I,
So, thanks.
are you gonna sign the contract or should you need me to sign?
I can do it right now if you guys wanna.
But I don't have a copy of it, so
You can.
do you want to, Amy, do you want to sign it, then I can make a copy and send you the original. Sure, sure.
Go to that page. I know, I came across it the other day. Now it's not.
I appreciate it. If anyone ever has any questions, we're always open and willing to answer questions and talk to anyone. Ready here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Patrice, did Julie talk to you about the CDBG?
Nate, yes, we talked about it at the Village Hall Task Force meeting.
Okay.
And it's due in May. It's very cumbersome. We are eligible to apply because our population has changed as far as poverty levels in Sister Bay. So this is the first time that we've been able to apply for this grant. So the task force voted that we should go ahead and try for this grant, that it would definitely be worth it. It's going to be $10,000. We do have the money for that in the money that's left that the village gave us from last year. And we do need to hire, I think it's Bay Lake, to write the grant for us.
So moved.
Motion by Berto. Second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, design services contract for the Village Hall renovation restrooms. 32 to 242.
So moved.
Right on.
Motion by Berto,
Second.
second by Harf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Animal control contract. 244. Make a motion be approved.
So moved.
Motion by Bell, second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Utility rate study change. 248.
Questions?
Is this something that the utilities has to do and we've got to approve it?
So moved.
Motion by Roscoe,
Second.
second by Warner. All those in favor?
Aye.
So you guys are motioning that this is going to public hearing at next month's meeting, right? You know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Of
Check it.
course we do.
I'm like, we didn't talk about it, so.
Okay, fee schedule, page 253 to 262. Discussion.
Nothing stood out that, I mean, because we have dealt with this the past few years and I think have really gotten much better in line with where we should be and how much time staff is spending on anything to get that reimbursed. So, and this was just our first swipe at it, right? Because it's coming back then.
there's one thing I wanna change on here, and it's only come up once, and it was, my understanding of it was incorrect, and it was applied incorrectly, for not the way I thought it was, and that's the fee in lieu of parking. I'd like to
What?
change
Sorry,
that,
I didn't hear.
the fee in lieu of parking, it's
Oh,
on
yeah,
page
yeah.
254.
Okay.
When we talked about it years ago, it had been a ongoing annual fee, and this is a one-time fee. I'd like to change that to $1,000 per space per year.
And what is it?
$3,000 per land use change, so one time,
That's it.
yes. And that $1,000 is absolutely open there, but I would at least want it to change to per space per year.
Well, right, I felt that when the plan commission had to deal with that and that was never its intention, but it was,
And when we discussed it at first, it was an annual thing, and then it just, when it made it into the fee schedule,
right.
didn't make it in there, so that's the,
Okay, so you're saying that $1,000 per parking space per year.
yes.
And so this is only for new, I mean, this isn't retroactive, obviously.
No,
No,
this would be if you didn't have enough parking, and you wanted to say, hey, I don't have enough parking, I want to pay this fee instead, if the plan commission approves it, you could pay this fee instead of actually providing parking.
But in the way it's written now, it's a one-time fee.
yeah,
Right.
So what if a business is operating now without enough parking and it sells to somebody else, could we impose this fee?
If
Or
they
if they
change the
changed
use,
the use, that
But
would
not
be
if it's
more
the same
intense,
use.
right? If it was still, if it was a retail and somebody bought it and they're still gonna use it at retail, it just stays. But if they want it, you know, if they want it, if something that was a clothing store and now they want to put a restaurant in, that's a whole different ballgame.
and I'm not hard set on that number, Kurt, that $1,000 is
I
just kind of
think
where.
that's a fair number per space.
Well, we are so short in parking, I
Right.
agree, we need something.
The concept is if we give the village this money, then the village takes that profit upon themselves and the village takes care of it. So it's the logic behind it that's
Yeah, that makes
used
sense.
elsewhere.
I like that, I'm comfortable with $1,000 per year. Fee
Per space.
per space.
And do we have to agree to this fee in lieu of parking?
Yes, because we have it in the zoning code.
Okay.
It references that you can utilize, that's a tool that you can use.
If we don't have,
Right, so there has to be a fee for it.
Yeah, I think this goes back to Bob Guthrie times.
It does.
but if somebody wanted a restaurant with 300 people in a clothing store, you could still say no to the restaurant. You wouldn't have to just say, okay, but we'll make you pay because you don't have the parking spots.
Well, right, and I think one of the, continue what you're saying is I don't think that we have a maximum in the zoning code.
No.
Because I think we should, if you're 20 spaces short, I don't think that you should pay the village $20,000 a year, every year. You know, so I think that we need to change that and that whatever the number would be, 3, a maximum of 3 you can pay for, or 5, or whatever the number would be that the plan commission would have a conversation about. So I would like that to be on the plan commissions, if we're proposing this change, can you make a note for Julie to put that on the plan commission agenda? I know it already went out for next week, but for January's meeting, Vlad. Thank you.
In the various places, because I believe we have to select it, and I think that at some level, we should give other people that option to call upon it to a certain percentage, so that's a plan commission discussion.
Right.
Okay, I like your change for now, Nate.
Okay, so then it's gonna still have to come back next month.
Right.
So that's our first go at it. Anything else? We don't need a motion on that. I'll read this in the next one.
Well, I'm looking at page 262, actually, Allison, when we changed these are dates, it's not dollars. I just wanted you to look at it as well. I don't think we talked about it necessarily about dates for transients and and,
No,
close
we're,
and
we're
so
not
forth.
changing anything for the marina this year.
Right, we're not changing dates or anything, but there's dates changed on here,
I think we're changing the opening and closing dates.
right?
So fees for,
No, I know we're not changing fees, it's the dates that I was asking about.
right, so I think instead of the fee being from October 15th to May 15th, it's October 14th to May 20th. You know, I think maybe that's what they mean. We're just changing the dates of when the fee
Mhm, I got
applies.
it. I just, it's hard to,
Do we have Dave coming to talk to us this month?
Dave is at his fall conference in
no,
Warsaw.
he's, yeah.
Oh, I thought he said he was. I do believe does make sense.
So, so,
So it's May 14th,
Oh, no, I don't know what the dates are.
that's on page 262.
Oh, okay.
right, that's, sorry.
I was just
Mhm.
making up dates, okay.
May 14th through October 13th.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes.
Yep. And
And then
then the
September
second
15th
one
through the
is
13th.
September 15th through October 13th,
Right,
and then
And it
another
says this
October
13th.
13th. And then 2025. It's hard to see that 4 is stricken out on the commercial vendor
yes,
fees.
yeah, it's just hard to, the way it's,
I mean, I guess I wonder why we have to put the specific dates on there. We could just say marina season, but I'm sure there's a reason for it.
well, it must have been there last year. Okay. But we did talk about early put in and late takeout and stuff. I decided to keep the dates the same. I just don't think we talked about specific dates.
We did talk about specific dates.
We did talk about 13th, okay.
Well, right, because it said in the marine minutes,
Mhm.
that it's always the Sunday before Fall Fest, I think. So it all depends on where Fall Fest lands.
Yeah, Fall Fest is late next year, just like it was this year. It's gonna be late for 2 more years. So Fall Fest this year is gonna be the 8th, and 2025 is gonna be the 18th. Anyway, that's why it's, so that would mean that this date doesn't look right, but we can ask him.
The 18th is a Saturday,
Mhm.
so this makes sense, the 13th. Is the last day of,
It would be the Sunday before Fall Fest.
That's a Monday. That's why I'm asking.
the
So,
13th is a Monday?
So why don't we ask to make to double check the dates?
Sure,
When it comes back.
sure. It's not gonna, that's for sharing, but.
So I mean, it's a good thing if we have to put the dates in there, we should include the.
Well, I
dates.
think that's it. I think it closes on the 13th, so if you fail to remove your boat by the next day, then you have to pay. Yeah, we can ask them to double check it, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah, well, it says
So
dates.
just consensus on that and it'll come back.
Okay. Financial report. Appropriations. I will make a motion that we pay the bills in the amount of $623,320.23.
Second?
Motion by Bell, second by Warner. Discussion? Questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Staff reports. Are there any staff on here that would like to,
In the parks report, it said some people do like the decorations going up earlier. I understand the warmer weather is great for the staff and they're much happier putting them up when it's, not blowing 20 degrees. Because I called and complained about the poles being lit.
Well, usually they're up, but they're not lit.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's one thing, because in the past, we've had them go up pretty early.
Right.
We just didn't light them.
Right.
Because the other night, there was, what was lit, the post office. But sometimes it's weird, with what comes on and,
Yeah.
It's weird, it's bizarre, it's happened many years. But yeah, just don't turn them on.
So I'm wondering if this should be a Parks Committee conversation, or if we as a board can just, don't care when you put everything up, but do not light anything before capture the spirit.
Yeah, I
Should
mean,
we
if you
do
want to
that?
test it and make sure it's
Right,
okay,
yeah,
especially because we're replacing some of those, boxes and stuff, sure, but. It don't even matter.
If we have consensus, I think we can just direct staff.
okay,
There's no need
That
to
sounds good.
do all that. It's gonna be past the time when it's being
Yeah.
applied.
thank you.
Okay.
Sure.
Anything else? So I guess I will say good job, Vlad. I hope we get to, I've got some ideas on how we can spend some of that money, one funding item. After we actually have that as a proposal budget amendment change, but we have to get the money first.
What money?
The additional money he's going to get.
Okay.
We don't have a problem spending money, it's just finding the money, that's usually the challenge, so. There's small additional money, and that's Vlad being very diligent on that, so. And I don't know, if Vlad would have put that in there if I didn't explicitly say, Vlad, toot your horn. You did something good, make
Yeah.
sure the board knows.
Good job.
Anybody have any questions on how he accomplished that?
Is that your happy face, Vlad? There it is, okay.
Okay.
So did we vote on that or just have a motion in a second?
We need to vote
Oh, on the corporation,
on the appropriation.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed, okay, so that is now moved on to staff report, so. Thank you. Any further discussion on staff reports? Okay, committee reports. Finance committee did not meet. Fire boards
did not,
did not meet. Ad hoc green tier.
we didn't have a quorum and, there's still the ongoing discussion of the recycling, which is something that's gonna take time because of trying to incorporate other communities into it. Because it's like, we can't get enough from our community alone. And actually Heidi posted some great notes. Thank you, Heidi. Julie's working on it hard.
Historical Society.
I was very confused by the historical societies. What's in the packet? A lot of it didn't make sense. All kinds of typos, and it doesn't say who it's submitted by.
It's submitted by the secretary, and that's my sister, Roberta Champeau.
Okay.
Basically, they are just getting everything going for Chris Crindle Market. All the vendors are lined up. There are no spaces to rent. They're all booked. They're using the Sister Bay shuttle bus this year. They're working real hard on getting all their volunteers in line. They're also reaching out to Gibraltar high school students to get some of them to volunteer to use their community hours to volunteer to help with the Historical Society for that. So it's 3 weekends this year, just like last year. That works better for them.
Housing committee.
I wanted to say thank you to Patrice for Champeau disagreed with the city's homes not being kept in the workforce market after 6 years, and she said she would hope Sister Bay would not follow that aspect of the model. I wholeheartedly agree. What is the point of going through all of this if you cannot guarantee it for the future? And on page 6 of the committee minutes, on line 20, it said downset the homes were about $1,000 a square foot. Is that correct?
Geneva Ridge. They start at 200, they go up to 310,000. Most of them are 3 bedrooms. The smallest one is, I think, a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. They're very, very, very small rooms. I can send you the,
But I mean, are they $1,000 a square foot?
well, let's see, the one that's 200 grand,
So really 2,000 square foot house for that much, that's.
no, that one's smaller. So that's probably.
So I was just questioning
That's
that,
probably a typo.
is that all in with the land value? I mean, it just,
Well, but the land value, I don't think the land value would be in there because the city gave them that.
okay,
And the city also, the city has put in, what, $3.5 million for infrastructure.
I mean, so it's, if the houses are between 1,000 and 1,300 square feet, and they're between $270,000 and $305,000, that number's off by at least half, so.
And they have garages.
Yeah.
Attached. That are 400 square feet.
I was just questioning the number.
Yeah. I attended the meeting, so I have the floor plans and stuff, and actually, I think it's in the packet.
I believe that that's not correct. I can't remember exactly what it was per square foot, but it wasn't $1,000.
I have my notes, but I don't have them with me,
Okay.
unfortunately.
My biggest concern from hearing all this information from Portside was that I really don't know how we're going to build something affordable that our workforce can actually afford to get into. You know,
Yeah,
even
that's pretty clear.
$300,000,
Yeah.
you know, that's $3,000 a month mortgage. Our wages up here just don't equal that. So there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of exploring to be done. I have an open mind.
I think that's always been a concern of mine, and then thinking about, I mean, now we're talking about our utility fees, and there's electricity, there's insurance, I mean, there's so many fees on top of
Yeah,
mortgages.
it's, and absolutely I'm not in favor of building something with village money and land and infrastructure and then turning it over to someone for 6 years and then having them sell it to whoever they want to. That makes absolutely no sense to me. If we're going to do anything, it's going to help our workforce, our young families, our retired people, residents, but not, you know.
And we don't want to burden somebody with a home either. Like get somebody into a home and they can just barely afford it, and then they're stuck paying
Right.
off that home. And I mean, people can get really sucked into houses too, I think.
Well, I think the notes that I focused on, full disclosure, I've gone to all these meetings, are the ones that, the comments are from Marissa. And also there's 2 other women that are on it. One is, from Habitat for Humanity, and the other one, works on all the, financing for, the land use department. And, you know, my impression from them was that municipalities had to pay for a big chunk of it, because Marissa will say in these notes a couple different times, I'm not sure if Sister Bay really wants to pay fill in the blank. I'm not sure if Sister Bay really wants to pay. So that is pretty clear. So, I mean, I did attend Liberty Grove's, public housing forum. And unfortunately, there were 3 people that were supposed to speak and 2 couldn't attend, but they had someone from Stantec there. And he is basically their engineer, so he walked us through developers' costs. And it mirrors everything that, he didn't say anything any different. Basically, developers need free land, they need free infrastructure. And you want, it'd be better if you had a 68-foot lot with maybe a 7 feet in between. You know, maybe it'd be better if you did townhouses, maybe if you better to, it wasn't bad news, it was just not, wasn't great. You know, it's just reality, you know, it is just what it was. And in this at this meeting, we had Paul Shifnick, he's Portside, he's the guy. And he built Geneva Ridge, and he worked with Sturgeon Bay on it, and a few others. So, you know, it's just it's just reality, it just, you know, what it is. So what's the most efficient and effective way to do it, which is what the housing committee's working on.
It's not an easy task.
No, it's not. Well, next week, they're gonna have, or next week, I think the next meeting, Therese, they've got, Olenichek from Sturgeon Bay coming.
Marty?
Yeah, you know, and Denise, you know him, I worked with him on a couple of different things, and he's a straight shooter, he knows what he's doing, he's very good. And he's a guy that I think I'm very interested in hearing what he has to say, how they did it, what they did, and so forth. So that'll be a good meeting. But you do, I mean, Teresa, you're doing all the right things, you're having all the right people come to talk. You know, so Stantec, that was a good, you know, sorry, having Paul there was good. Having Olenichek there, I mean, people that have done this. How'd you do it? What did it cost? What are the parameters, you know? Things have kind of settled a bit from an interest rate perspective, at least for the moment. You know, for the moment, so it's progress.
Thanks for your work, Patrice.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, Marina Committee.
The notes are in there? Oh, sorry. We just talked about it. Sorry about that.
Well, the October notes are in here, and we did have a November meeting. I think the November minutes are in here. And November, we talked about marina winterization. No, this is October. November, we had the annual reports from the commercial vendors. Peter Nelson is selling Sildor County to Marley Inksetter, so that will be a change of ownership, but it will run, she's been there for 12 years, it will run really smoothly, that would be great. And Dave said he was going to be here because I remember saying, I wanted to bring something up. He's like, oh, I'll be there and I'm going to give a report to the board.
He did say he was gonna.
And because there was something I wanted to talk about and I didn't write it down because he said he was gonna be here and it's not in our agenda here. So, do you remember what?
No, I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
I don't remember.
Well, one of the questions I had from the October minutes, so I don't know
Okay.
if you talked about this at your November meeting.
Yeah.
Was that, it stated that Lino noted, and this is when you were, talking about having, extending the season, so they could, you know, get in the marina early or
There were
stay a
some
little
voters
bit
that wanted to
longer.
get in early or wanted
And
to be
then,
late. Yeah.
At the end of that paragraph, it said Lino noted that there is concern over liability if boats are present in the marina while the marina is closed. And did, at your November meeting, get an answer to that question?
Well,
Yeah.
we did not extend the dates. And then if somebody one by one wants to ask Dave, they might be able to put their boat in, but even early season, it's so hard because they're still putting the docks in. It's too hard to officially say people can come early, but maybe if the
Because not
marina's
knowing what the
ready,
weather's like, what
Right.
the, if
then
they've
on a
gotten all the
one
work
by
done.
one basis, they might
Yeah.
ask Dave and they might be able to put their
Yeah.
boat in.
It's just always a scramble, you know, because everybody's got what, three guys, I guess three businesses that can put you in. And the same businesses can take you out. All the same time from 7 marinas, you know, so everybody's trying to kind of scramble and get in, and especially people with larger boats that want to do some work and actually. So it just, the time, timing is always a bit of a, at the beginning of the season, at the end.
And the assistant manager, Sam, he's doing a lot of training, which is great. Dave got his certified marina manager approval, which is a big deal, and Sam is on track to do that as well. And we'll tell you next month if there was something super exciting that we forgot to tell you
I
this
don't
month.
remember what, I don't.
I
have
feel
my
like it
mind-
had a
I don't
dollar
have my
amount
notes with
attached
me.
to
I
it
should
though.
just bring my notes with me next
Does it
time.
have a
I
dollar
don't
amount?
remember.
Oh, well,
Wasn't it the new building?
but yeah, we had the money for the new building that we approved, so in January, I think, maybe they're going to make some plans.
But not,
Just-
won't be for next year.
That was just a brief,
It'll be 26.
brief conversation.
Nothing happening next year.
I don't think so. No, that hasn't even been on an agenda. How it could be.
No. So I'm sorry, I can't remember the one thing I wanted to tell you all,
We haven't discussed a new building, Denise, I don't think, for 3 or 4 months.
but I think most of it, it's, yeah. It was a.
The big discussion was, are we gonna have living quarters upstairs? No, so.
So the main thing we talked about was the sale of Seldor County, and getting the vendor reports. And, that you can't transfer,
Yeah, there was a request to transfer a slip.
that you
Yeah.
can't transfer slips from one
And-
person to another, it's.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that was kind of pretty straightforward, but.
Library commission?
The actual minutes are always like a month late, but the only thing I'd like to add from, last week's meeting was the fact that they had a problem with the fireplace, which will show up on next month's notes, but, they had Synergy repair the fireplace and the thermostat. But there was a problem with having the sprinklers checked. I don't know what it's every 20 years they have to do that. And there were problems where they had to have a valve change that failed, and then the sprinkler heads testing. And it was a $3,900 project. So, and I think that was above the budget, but, it needed to be done. And then they have a landscaping company that they've had for years that is not renewing the contract up in Sister Bay because they've lost staff. And then the committee's looking for someone new to do the landscaping.
So about the vandalism,
There's something with a table in back, which I know about, but I don't have the information for that.
We did want the table.
but I just, does somebody, I don't want. Seeing that it says it was a disturbing message was carved into one of the picnic tables
And I don't know. what
after
it
the
is.
meeting, if somebody knows what that
Well, it looks like
disturbing
Christina knew one
message
of the
was,
individuals.
could they just tell me after the meeting? Thank you.
Well, it looks like Christina knew one of the individuals.
Really.
That's what it says.
I see.
Hey, parks.
Can we go back to Marina, please? My
Absolutely.
light bulb just went on. So the big thing was our water bill went from like 5,000
Oh, that leak.
to.
Oh, they found the leak.
They found the leak, it was underwater, but it was leaking from June, July, August, September, until the utilities checked it again, so the water bill.
Yep.
Was enormous, so Marina would like to talk to utilities about maybe negotiating a little. Maybe break in that water fee,
Well, send us a letter.
yes,
So what happened? I mean,
So
the
there was-
individual is,
there was a leak underwater and it wasn't noticed until the quarterly bill came out and there was like. I forgot what the numbers were, but it was a huge jump.
Yeah, it was huge. But I wonder how that, I mean, leaks are leaks. So the only way to notice that, I guess, would be monthly bill, but what we're billed quarterly, no matter what, right?
So they didn't notice it, so in any case, huge numbers, but then in the meantime. When utilities was looking this over, they realized that the marina hasn't been paying a sewer fee since 2008 or so, when. The marina transferred from the Johnsons, because the Johnsons had some agreement that they didn't have to pay a sewer fee, but in the meantime. laws have changed, and if you're hooked up to water, you need to be hooked up to sewer, so now the marina hasn't been paying a sewer fee, but utilities can only go back so far, so then we might have to, the marina might end up having to pay some sewer fees, so there's some discussion that has to go on between utilities and marina.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
what I forgot.
Bring us the information.
Okay.
We'll
Hopefully they
have the
will.
conversation.
Actually, I misspoke. Christina did not know this individual, but whomever the Door County Sheriff was that arrived did.
Parks,
The minutes are in here, if anybody has any questions. Anybody at all? One thing I did say with the Chris Kendall bus was that, you know, the bus, albeit new, those buses are not great in snow and ice, no, even a small amount. Our old bus wasn't, but had new tires, so it wasn't that, it had a lot of other issues, but it did have new tires. And I actually was driving it, and it just isn't, you know, even on Fieldcrest, which is not a big, like, rise. When you came to the stop at 42, it didn't quite want to stop at that moment, you know, so they know that they need to have a plan B if you were there. So, that's the only other that maybe might not.
Well, Julie had, she requested the village to not charge the historical society for gas driver wages, and we did have a discussion about that because that's something we don't have budgeted, right, for this year.
No.
So I think what we agreed on was that because there might be some money left in the budget for the remaining of the year for the bus operation, because it didn't start operating until later in the summer. There's money left there, then yes, we could use it for that, but if not, then I guess we won't.
We were going to build them.
We were gonna build them for the use of the bus to cover gas and driver wages.
And Denise, we did, I thought it was important that one of the pastors be at that meeting. You know this, but for the fall challenge, we have a discussion about parking, so we'll do that next month. Any questions on that? Nope.
Planning Commission,
Minutes are there. Any questions?
When is Open Hearth gonna start that construction in the spring
For what?
for parking lot?
I have no.
We denied
Oh,
them.
you denied it? I didn't know that.
It's in the minutes.
Oh my God, I didn't read it right. Okay.
SBA, don't have minutes in there.
We don't have minutes in here. We did have a special meeting though, regarding the incidents, during the parade at Fall Fest. And, we decided that we are going to, moving forward, we're going to come up with a registration plan prior to the parade, so we know exactly who is going to be in the parade. And we're also going to come up with with rules, regulations of things that can be done, handed out during
We
the
have that
parade.
now, but it needs to be more.
It'll be
detailed.
updated, it'll be more detailed. The main thing is that we are going to require previous registration to the parade. And if you're not registered by a certain date, then you can't be in there, period. So we're going to, there is a subcommittee that will be formed specifically to the parade that will be handling registration, and haven't really started that. We just agreed that we have a meeting tomorrow morning.
It was really just,
Yeah.
disgusting, unfortunate.
Yeah,
What
we did.
happened?
Our meeting was,
Cause I was on a float, so I didn't
After the
see.
meeting.
Okay,
but
thank you.
this was all closed session. In open session, we decided that moving forward, we're gonna have prior registration to and update our guidelines.
Well,
And
the
then-
guidelines, they could be more specific, but most of them have, I think almost every parade, 4th of July and everybody else, they all have registrations. We were one of the few that
We don't
didn't.
have.
Well, it bit us this year.
So you don't know.
And,
Guys, one conversation at a time.
I've already had
had a meeting. We are well underway of getting kind of the, the new registration forms, kind of, filled or prepared. That meeting or that subcommittee has met once, since our kind of emergency meeting. And will also be consulting kind of with an attorney just to make sure that we're well within things that are okay and whatnot, just to kind of, again, set us up for success in the future so we don't have to worry about anything like this happening again.
Glad to hear you're going to consult with an attorney that is obviously a little bit of a sticky wicket on that sort of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Ellie, since it's part of your contract and all the, the events and things like that, could I ask that, whatever that registration looks like, and also the rules and regs for the Fall Fest parade, or it's the only parade we do, I guess, right? I mean, Goat Parade doesn't really kind of count, but, could you run that past, Parks?
Of course, yeah, we can bring that. Yeah, as soon as we have something, I know, I believe, like, our goal is to have it all tied up here, this winter or as fast as possible. So once we hit summer.
There's no huge rush, because. Okay.
And there was a statement sent out on behalf of SBA as well,
I got it.
a few days afterwards, so.
Yeah, no, Ellie and I got an email and she responded back and said, we acknowledge this, and we're going to deal with it.
Okay.
I would say that we should, because this is SBA's event, I think that Parks should be aware of what's going on, but I think we want to be careful how much we dictate to SBA what.
No, I'm not gonna, it's not a matter of approving it. I think we should just be aware.
Yes.
That's all.
Tourism zone, there's no minutes.
I have a couple things for you. First of all, the tourism zone, the meeting with the Destination Door County to look at their 2025 strat plan and 2025 budget request is December 5th. I think. I don't think I know. And then the latest room tax info. September got better. So, and year to date it's easier because they don't calculate by month on this report, but so on a year-to-date basis, we're up 5, the county's up 5. Just as a means of comparison, Bailey's is up 6. The village of Egg Harbor, they list the town and the village separately, and they're both roughly about the same amount of revenue. Village is up 11, town is up 4. And then let's see, where's Gibraltar? Gibraltar is also up 5. And the other one is Ephraim. Ephraim is up 2. One thing that's notable and is occupancy. And occupancy for a while has been down. So you look at room tax and you clearly up 5%. However, if you look at the average room rate, it's up at least 5 or more. So, considering inflation and then the increase in room rates, on a comp basis, it isn't really up 5. But from an occupancy standpoint, the county for the month of September was 58% occupied, and last year 61%. Sister Bay, 68%, last year 69%. That's not a big difference, but it's been consistent in the county. And that it's a concern. I mean, not, things are fine, but it's a concern and not anything that's happened in Door County in a really long time. Ephraim occupancy was 69% in September. Prior year it was 75%.
I'm sorry, Louise, why is that a concern?
Because there's fewer people
Less
here.
people coming up.
But
So-
isn't that okay in September?
Well, it can be, sure, but when there's fewer when there's fewer people here, when people are here, they don't just spend money in a room. They spend money dining and they spend money in retail. So the other thing I would suggest that you look at, it should be out there pretty soon, is our Pratt tax. Because our Pratt tax, last time I looked, was down 8%. So we and Ephraim are the only 2 communities in Door County can really look at our sales tax. Because essentially that's sales tax. It covers everything. And that's
Louise,
It doesn't
everybody's
cover
spending.
everything.
Well, almost. I mean, darn close.
Like Ace Hardware, it's
I
not,
gotcha. But
it's not in the grocery store.
but it does cover what a lot of our visitors are spending. And we haven't been down in Pratt ever.
Just can't imagine being 80-90% full in September or October. I don't know if we as a community want that, don't we?
No,
kinda
I'm
like
not
some
suggesting
children?
that the percentage that we're full is bad. What I'm saying is that compared to the prior year, we aren't filling as many rooms. So you can look at room tax and say, wow, we're doing great from a revenue perspective. But that's because the room rates are up.
Louise, I have a question for you. It's Patrice.
Sure.
Louise, does the STR factor, is that part of the occupancy? Or are you just talking hotels, motels, and bed and breakfast right now?
It's everything. It's short-term rentals. And
Everything. Okay.
it's everything.
Yep. Thank you.
I mean, the DCTZ and Juliana, she could probably actually slice and dice it and look at it by, by type of property. Because that's how she gathers the information. But as I said, the occupancy number, this has been going on for 3-4 months. It's not new. So it's just something to just be aware of, that's all. It is what it is.
So in the numbers, I think I already know the answer, but I'm just gonna ask it out loud. When you're talking about occupancy, and to follow up on Patrice's question. So if an STR, let's say the one down the road from me, the old Baptist church, okay, Maple
Sleeps 18.
Manor,
Mhm.
okay, 8 bedrooms.
Yep.
Do they count 8 bedrooms?
It depends on how they report. But it's
Or
really,
is it one
It-
house?
it
But see, because
depends
if
on
they
how
went
they
to a
report.
hotel,
Yeah.
some hotel would
I
have
gotcha.
8 more rooms.
100%. But
How
remember,
do you-
remember, if you're doing a comparison, like percent of rooms to percent of rooms the prior year, it's still apples to apples. They were open last year.
Correct.
So, but if you look at the report that that this is August 24, okay. I'm gonna see Juliana tomorrow and I will ask her. Because she looks at properties and then she looks at rooms. When it comes to short-term rentals, hold on, let me see what she does here. I'm not gonna waste everybody's time. I will email everybody and I'll let you guys know. And I'll let you know how she translates
If
it.
you're gonna email it to Ivy and probably send it out.
Certainly, of course, but we have, in the village, I mean, most of our short-term rentals are condos. We have 589 condo units. And it's 38% of the total amount of housing that we have in the village. And that information, actually, I got from the appraiser that just left. We have 706 single-family homes. And that's 45%. And we have 259 apartment units. That is 17%. Amongst the, and then within condos, the 589 condos, looks like short-term rentals. It says here, we have 56. Single-family homes, we have 706 single-family homes. And,
Louise, I think we can follow.
sorry,
follow
14 of those
email, we
are
can-
short-term rentals, but
we can write
it's an interesting read, actually. So, to answer your question, yes, short-term rentals are always included, always. But it's pretty consistent in terms of occupancy as a percent of total rooms this year versus last year, not just Sister Bay, but across the board, some tougher than others. But some people also have more short-term rentals as a percent of their total housing than others. We don't have as much, for instance, as Liberty Grove.
Okay.
So it's just something to know, that's all. That's what came out of DCTZ, and then the December 5th meeting is important. As they look forward, they'll tell us about their strategy and also their budget.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Utilities?
Any questions? 2 sets of minutes in there?
Village Hope Planning Task Force, we saw some of that in here today.
So on page 27, I went to look something up. And it starts on line 30 and it says Bjorn Johnson appearing on behalf of Al Johnson Restaurant and Boutique asked the task force to consider a discussion on parking as noted in his correspondence from the June 2024 meeting as the task force continues to discuss improvements at the Village Hall. I went to the June 2024 meeting to find out that he sent it individually to all of the Village Hall. So I can't access it. It references it here. But I
So it wasn't a
don't,
packet.
it wasn't in the packet. I don't know what it said.
I never got it.
Heidi never got it. So how do we deal with things like that?
If it's
Well-
official correspondence, it should go to the clerk or staff. So we shouldn't be too specific on there. If it goes to staff, I mean, really, it should be Heidi, but I could see times where it goes to Julie and then Julie passes it
So
along.
if it went to the members,
I
then,
have it right here.
okay, then
I
a
forwarded it.
member would have it.
I would discourage that, that is not. That's not something that's gonna get discussed at a meeting though. Because it's not part of the packet. So it may have been sent in that date in June of 2024, but there should not have been discussion about it if it wasn't on the agenda.
We didn't have a discussion.
Is that kind of what you're getting at, Denise?
No,
Okay,
But it says in the meetings that. Oh,
He sent,
he said something at the meeting to ask him.
there was some correspondence sent.
Yeah.
We all got it, but we didn't discuss it at.
right, yeah, I wasn't worried about them discussing it. I couldn't access it because it didn't go through
Gotcha.
the proper channels. And so I guess I'm just wondering when things like that happen, and it happens periodically, there's no doubt about it. You know, how do we make sure that it goes to the right people, that we follow through? Do we need to be the chair of that committee needs to be cognizant, and then if they get something and they see that staff is not included in that we forward it to them?
I think that's a reasonable expectation that the chair does that.
Okay.
And I would say anytime you have.
Because
anything
it
with
said the
village-
matter will be referred to the Sister Bay Plan Commission, and
Nothing.
we haven't talked about it. Didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Don't know what their concerns were. So,
Well, because, I mean, recently, actually on November 8th, we received an email outside of, just that came to the village board from a short-term rental owner. So does that go to? Plan Commission?
I should have pushed that on to, no, that should have gone to
Does it go to?
Julian, I mean, to Heidi particularly.
so that would be your responsibility, Nate, as
Yes,
president.
that would have been.
Yeah. Are you gonna do that right now?
I am.
Thank
So
you.
I, you know,
But explain that to me again, so that you would send it to Julie, who is or isn't on here, not on here, okay? And then what would she do with it?
Well, she would be aware of it as our administrator,
Right.
obviously, and Heidi should probably also be copied on it.
So we would put it with the property record. We have files on the properties, so it would be there, put there.
Okay.
yeah, and they should have gone to public correspondence. So let's get it on
should've
next
went into
month's public correspondence.
within the plan commission meeting, right? Because plan commission is one that did the short-term
So,
rental ordinance, correct?
I would say because this was actually sent to all of the village board members,
Right, it wasn't plan commission members, it was board members.
we may choose to then refer this to plan, but. that
Whatever
will be
you
in there.
decide, but feels like.
So I just say, I mean, it'll be a new habit that I guess the chairs of committees will have to try to remember.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else for village planning task force? Okay, then a motion to accept the committee reports.
So moved. Sorry. Second.
Motion by Roscoe, second by Hassan. All those in favor?
Hi.
Hey,
Opposed, motion carries. The matter to be placed on the future agenda referred to committee for official.
Well, I've always been kind of curious now that we're mentioning it about the garbage requirement in the off season when people aren't here.
We can't talk about it.
So what,
Can we put it on we can't? Can't we?
Well, not tonight.
But
Well,
no,
no.
but this is, we're talking
Yeah.
about things to talk about later,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Can we talk about it later?
yeah, we can put it on next month's agenda.
I-
I'll say
I'd like
let's
to-
depend on how long the agenda is, but we'll get it on.
Okay, whichever agenda that goes on,
Yeah.
I've always been curious about that requirement.
Anything else? Okay. 12, executive session. Convening executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 1985. Of one sub, E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whether competitive, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session, one particular to discuss the purchase of 2313 Mill Road. We'll call, I'll make a motion to be convened into executive session. Motion by Bell. Second by Roscoe. Roll call vote. Val, yes?
Bruno,
Yes.
Shampoo,
Yes,
Hart,
Here.
Hosen,
Yes.
Roscoe, and Warner.
Yes.
Okay, do we want to take 5 or do we want to just dive right into